another marriage encounter. We are delighted, as always, to be with you on the airways of Second Advent Radio. And for those who are following through our various social media platforms, we welcome you. We trust that you're doing well. Our prayer and hope is that your marriage, if you are married, that your marriage is going fine. Just in the event you're having some hiccups in your marriages, if for some reason or the other things aren't quite where you want it to be, do not despair. Stay tuned. Marriage Encounter is about helping you to make your marriages better, to guide you along the path towards intimacy. With me, Dr. Greene, is Pastor Staton Adams. Good day, Pastor Adams, and welcome to Marriage Encounter.
Good day, Dr. Greene. I am delighted to be here once again, and I'm delighted that our guests have joined us, those who are viewing and those who are listening. We thank you for tuning in, and we hope that we'll have another fruitful discussion again this morning as we continue. Today, as we continue, right?
Yes, definitely. Pastor, for the last few weeks, we have been discussing some very important principles. We are talking about a subject that oftentimes presents a challenge, because sometimes in marriages, you get to a point where you find that things just aren't going well. And we have been addressing this whole concept of boundaries, and when your spouse is unwilling to deal with the issue of boundaries, when you have situations where otherwise than a particular problem, your spouse is fine, but there may be some character flaw, there may be some real issue that needs to be dealt with. And we have been considering what you do in circumstances like those. Before we continue the discussion today, however, we want to have a word of prayer. So we'd like to invite our viewers and listeners, if you're able to, join us at this moment as Pastor Adams leads us in a word of prayer. Pastor Adams.
Yes. Father, we thank you again today for the privilege we have of airing live this broadcast and sharing with our viewing, listening audience in these very important areas of marriage and family. We again pray for your overall counsel and guidance and wisdom. We trust you as the mighty counselor, and may this installment today be a blessing to all our viewers and our listeners once more. For Christ's sake.
Amen. Amen. So friends, again, there are times when last week, Pastor Adams, we indicated that when you are addressing certain issues with your spouse, it is important to not give a plethora of complaints, not share in one sentence or in one paragraph a multitude of problems. Nobody likes to know that everything is wrong with them and nothing is right with them. So we recommend strongly that you deal with very significant issues and try to avoid creating a huge list of requests for change. I want you to,
yes.
if you get to the point where you are, your spouse is agreeing to have a meaningful conversation with you, a discussion concerning what ought to be changed and what not to be changed, consider what is really, really very important. What I like to say to couples, especially when we're doing premarital counseling, it is important to understand what you can live with and what you're not able to live with. And so in that moment, consider what is the real issue here? What is this burning desire? And share that one thing. Don't give 5 and 6 different things. Go one at a time. Maybe next year, another opportunity will arise for you to address another issue. But one at a time. Begin with the most important issue. And we like to say, take your time. One at a time, one step at a time, and that's how you will get to the end of the journey.
Yeah, and I would want to add, while we're talking about dealing with one at a time, if it's a major substantive issue, make sure you stay with it and get it resolved. Don't leave it and try to sweep it under the rug. I would normally present to my couples a 10-step measure to deal with the conflict, whatever the issue is. You already identified, you know what it is, but then that's just identifying. And that is so crucial because you don't want to be scratching where it is not itching. So when we say you identify, well, this is the thing, and we preferred some last week for the last broadcast, we did say what some of the issues might be. A spouse could have a real issue with not being on time. People might say that that's a minor thing. Who cares in the Caribbean where we live and fraternize, anytime. But if you're a consummate professional, time is important. And I did mention that it's not just on time, but what other implications it would have. Let's say you have a spouse who is a spendthrift and runs the family budget haywire, and you've had several discussions on this and no change. That could be a serious issue, a real problematic issue. So I would say that you stay with it and go the various, and you can find a lot of models, like a 5-step model, a 10-step models to resolving a particular issue, and so on. But I would say bring everything to the fore. If this is an issue, how do we solve it, right? You've identified it. Who are the contributors to the problem? Is it me or you or both of us? Because remember we said 2 broadcasts ago, we can't think that, okay, this issue exists and I probably don't have any part at all to play with it. I have to be introspective and be objective and to be honest to see if anyway. So I have to look at that as well. We have to work on what are the possible solutions. Let us brainstorm, let us put that down, and let us not just brainstorm, put it down, but let us make the effort to put it to work. What we said we would do, or what you have to do, what I have to do, what both of us have to do. And problems just don't go away like that. you have to be intentional about what you're going to do to get it resolved. You see, and we said you don't avoid playing the blame game, and we quoted Ephesians, where we have to confess our faults, our wrong one to the other, and because we are in a love relationship, I would hope so, which I think that's because we're in a love relationship, we also bring love to bear on this problem, even when a fault or faults in one or both of us do exist, because we do have to look beyond the faults and see what else do we have. And I think you did mention that, you were talking with that couple and how they came in angry, and when you began to discuss the beautiful things, the whole countenance and the whole atmosphere changed, right? So that is so important. We just don't, some people start an issue and then put it aside and sweep it on the rug, leave it. No, no, no. Finish dealing with it. We're gonna get this done, get it out of the way. We're gonna heal this relationship if it need healing there. We're gonna hug up and kiss up and make up, and that's what it is. That you will live until you die as couples once you can take that route, right? To get a problem resolved in its entirety, right? And you get it resolved, both of us are comfortable, both of us are happy with the outcome, we can move on to the next one.
I like to say that what we are effectively saying is that your conflict resolution skills are to be intact. We have mentioned on a number of occasions, Pastor, that it is important to, in your marriage relationship, to treat your marriage as priority. Don't consider the moment. Too many persons in their relationships are reactive. Something happens today, and all of a sudden, just because of this, we get upset and we want to walk away. We want you to think beyond the now. You ought to be able to see your marriage as more than what is happening at this particular moment. And rather than being reactive, You want to be proactive. So you want to build a solid relationship so that your future can be better than your past. It is important and significant, I believe, that you understand that the concept is that you are both taking a journey together. And each step you take in the right direction is going to bring fulfillment and joy. Sometimes the path gets rugged. And we're saying, be patient, hang in there. And this is why when conflicts arise, when you see things in one another that are challenging you, if you were married for 5 years, for 10 years, and you are realizing that, by this time you thought things would have been a lot more fulfilling, and you realize that you're still having some challenges, it could be that you need to reconsider your approach to certain things. And what I hear you say just now, Pastor Adams, is that folks understand when we get to the point where we have addressed the feelings, how we feel, and you begin now to think about the specific issues, it is so very important for you not to be sidetracked. What is the specific issue? And I'm suggesting that you deal with one issue at a time. And as you
Yes.
rightly said, make sure that the issue is addressed, right? In its entirety.
Fully.
Yes.
Yes.
And
And I
when we
could
are
say
able,
from my, I like to say, go ahead, because I was going to give from my own, I like to share from my own practical experience. This is not just theory, but I like to say, I like to let my audience know. I'm at a seminar, I'm not afraid to share from my own experience because that's how people know. After all, we thought the pastor had it done made, I done packed, but that's not the case. This struggle I had, and this steps I had to take. 36 years of marriage is not just so, right? You had to deal with stuff.
that's right. And there are very few
I would
persons, I
say,
believe.
yeah, I had a matter with time. Well, it was not me. You know, the problem is that I have a large territory to cover, 30 miles expanse. We have a baby, and we had agreed take time I want to get till to the end of my territory, almost 30 miles away, and come back halfway. I have a time frame on which I have to do that. I have to drop off these correspondences. I'm talking about the life of a pastor, right? You have to drop off all of these things. You have to that those are the days we didn't have all of this technology that we have today, you know. And I am upset because my wife is not getting ready on time, you know. And when she comes down with the baby, I am disgruntled, and I'm driving at a rate, and I am not talking to her, and I'm upset through the whole journey. But how do we resolve that issue with time? And as a polite woman as she is, she's not gonna bother with me and so. But when we get home in the night, she's gonna talk to me quietly and say, "Well, justify that behavior this morning on the road. You did not talk to me, and the behavior was less than pastoral. What it is, you know, I have to point the finger to me. My behavior was not justifiable. I was wrong because we made an arrangement that I am going to be out of my library, not going to be down there on the Sabbath morning. I'm going to finish everything by Thursday night. I'm going to help you pack, or we're going to spend the whole day. We not because the miles we have to go. But I am not doing that. She has to fix this and fix that, fix her lunch, deal with the baby and everything. And I expect her to be on time. And I didn't do my part. I was wrong. The conflict is I had to take responsibility on, okay, I'm going to change this, get back to what I planned that I would do. I would do X, Y, D, and D, make the burden lighter that we can get out on time. I had to take responsibility. I was wrong.
It's interesting, and I'm so grateful for your willingness to share and on an issue, Pastor, that I believe a lot of couples who are listening right now can identify with. The matter of time, you arrange that you are going to leave home by X time. Let's say you use the example of going to church. The part time is 8:30. It's going to take us 20 minutes to get to church. We want to be early. We are giving ourselves an extra 10 minutes to anticipate any traffic or those kinds of things. Let's get leaving at 8:30. And now in your case, clearly you had an arrangement with your wife that there's some things you are going to do and some things she's going to do. You did not keep the end of your bargain. And it is good that
Right.
you're admitting, hey, you realize, you're in your study, you're reviewing your sermon, you are the preacher, you want to make sure you get it right. But you should have done that before. Now, in some situations, it may be the man who is at fault. In other situations, and I heard just earlier this week of another individual sharing their concern. And this individual said that they would announce to their spouse the night before, remember, we're leaving at 9 tomorrow. And see, I'm getting my clothes ready. Are you sure you don't want to get your clothes ready? And the spouse would say, I'll be fine, I'll be fine, I'll be fine. You do what you're doing. And then in the morning, the spouse would get up and would spin around and lo and behold, the spouse is very late. And so
Yeah.
this is a real issue of how do we resolve these kinds of matters. Now, you had the maturity and your wife had the level head not to antagonize you when you were upset and speeding down the road, but in a quiet, reflective moment to say to you, explain your behavior this morning. Now, you're blessed to have had a spouse like that. Some other spouses would not necessarily react like that. Some other spouses may say, stop the car, let me out, and then that would lead to something else. But I
These
think
things will happen indeed. Serious.
we are talking about practical stuff here. We're talking about
Yeah.
practical stuff. And I do want to point out, that when you recognize that there is an issue, in this particular situation, what is the specific issue? It's not, you would have dealt with how you felt, how upset you were because you're late, you're tired, etc. But what we're talking about here is the whole matter of time management, right? The whole matter of time management and our responsibility towards helping one another so that it becomes a shared activity of getting ready together and leaving home at a certain time. It is important that we identify the specific issue and that we discipline ourselves to discuss the real issue, come to decisions with respect to what we are going to do to make a difference. And when we make those decisions, we ought to follow through on those decisions. So in your discussion, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you agree to do. We ought to every now and then check in. Are we making progress? Are things going according to plan, etc.,
Yes.
so that we manage the situation well?
Yes, and I like you mentioned that it's always good to review. You set a plan how you're going to get this thing resolved, review, and not just review. I say also review and reward. Reward doesn't have to be anything great, significant. Just a little thank you note, just a little something, just a little pat, a little peck on the cheek to say I appreciate the steps I'm seeing. Things are changing, and I am glad for how things are going. Review and reward, right? Because the reciprocity of the human mind is like that. When we are applauded and we are applauded and we are, get the kind of a little affirmation, it stamps something on our on positive emotions, and we are more predisposed to continue do what we're doing or repeating the behavior. So review and reward.
Now, Pastor, I want to point out, while we are on this, I want to point out very quickly a few significant observations with your example, if you would allow me, because
Yes.
we want to show our viewers and listeners the danger of escalating, right? If when you're upset, your wife eventually got to the vehicle late because you did not pull your weight, you did not fulfill your obligations, you stayed in your office, you prepared your sermon, and then you got up and got ready. You left her to deal with the baby, to deal with herself and to pack and that kind of stuff. But you are vexed because in the moment you're only thinking she's still late and we said we're going to leave home at this particular time. But she chose not to escalate. She chose not to react to your attitude. Now, if she had chosen to, what could have happened is that you could have ended up in a situation where there is verbal exchanges as you drive along the road. You are already late, you are speeding, and you're arguing. That is a recipe for disaster. You know, you lose concentration, you get in an accident, you injure your wife, yourself, and your child, and that is so. Or it could have ended up in a storming match to see who could outnumber the other person with respect to the blows that you give, not physical blows this time, but emotional blows. She says something critical and you try to come back with something even more critical. And that is what we're talking about, that you're escalating. You're trying to up the ante to see how forceful you can get and how you can overpower your spouse by punching this winning blow. That kind of attitude does not make for a good relationship. We have these things very, very often in relationships. And what we're saying is, don't go down that road. One of you need to pull back. One of you need to, let the other person, they will soon come to the point where they realize, okay, my spouse is not responding. There's no fun in this thing, me alone just arguing. So I might as well chill. You pull the fuse rather than fueling the fire. And that is what we are suggesting.
So the principle was that you do not, if one person or both persons are angry, let it rest, because it is when we are angry, we act out of character, we say things that we would later regret that we didn't really want to say. And so that was exactly the scenario, because yes, you rightly said, instead of de-escalating, the whole situation could have been escalated, because I would answer and you would answer me back, and I'm going to tell you something 5 times more hurtful. You will tell something 10 times more hurtful, and we're going to be going down the road like that. That does not solve the issue. The issue is how we're going to solve this matter with the time. How are we going to fix it? That arguing going on like that wouldn't solve the problem. We have to come back now in our calm, composed, and say, well, look, this and this step, this misstep we took, so and so and so, get those things done from so and so time, make sure you do so and so. That's what it is. That is a more sensible, measured approach, right? And that is what we want, you see. So I normally say in a conflict, because we really deal with conflict here and a boundary resistant person, a conflict develop. Do not raise your voice in the house except it's on fire, right? Let us talk to this thing as though we are sensible and we have some brain in our head. And when we are a sense of equilibrium, at a sense of equilibrium, we can talk to this matter here, and get it resolved in a sensible way.
And that is indeed very wise counsel. And we want people to appreciate and understand that what we are suggesting is that you are building a relationship. You're not breaking down your relationship. When you go towards escalation, when you go towards winning, again, the principle is you are a couple. If one wins at the expense of the other, then that's a failure for the marriage, and that's not what you want. So try not to be selfish in your approach. Try not to think about you at the moment. Think about the marriage. Remember, the marriage is bigger than you. The marriage is bigger than the individual parts. And you want to be able to think about what's going to happen tomorrow. What about my future? A lot of marriages have ended that could have been saved, where people are a little more patient, a little more willing to humble themselves and to put in a little more hard work. And they could have had some couples who are today divorced and who are having challenges, have lost meaningful opportunities because they were not willing to adopt an attitude of humility, an attitude where you say, let me give priority to my relationship. It is always so very important to do that.
Yes, and a happy marriage makes a happy home. It doesn't mean that there will not be any problem or we are faultless. But when we can love each other beyond our faults and see how we can build each other up, as we discussed last week from Ephesians, that is building each other up. It becomes a strength. So I can confess and take responsibility, knowing that you are here, you're not going to judge me, you're not going to put me down, you're not going to, eliminate me because I confess my faults and I make myself vulnerable. The happy home is not a problem, a home without an issue. That's not what we are saying. But a happy home is a home where we can take responsibility, own up, help each other, forgive each other, and love each other, because all of us have our short and shortcomings that we said from time to time on this program. And what we can do that, the home is a happy home.
I believe that our time is winding down. It looks to me like we probably have another minute or so. Time goes by so quickly these days. So let us, I was just gonna make another point, but I realized that we don't have enough time to go into the details there. So I just want to do a quick review here, Pastor. You will
Yes.
Be confronted with issues in your relationship that have to be addressed. We are not in any way suggesting that you do not address the issues. But remember, you want to address issues one at a time. You want to identify what the specific issue is. We like to say you deal with the emotional component first, but once you deal with the emotional component, understand how you feel, how this is impacting you, what this is causing you. When you understand how you can appreciate and understand how your spouse is feeling as a result, then you can sit down to deal with the specific issue. Identify the issue, avoid the distractions, the tangents that come in here and there. Stick to the issue and work towards a meaningful solution. We are going to have to continue the discussion next week. We don't have much more time. Again, we want to ask you, if you do have questions, comments, or concerns, to feel free to write to us, share your thoughts with us, let us know how meaningful this program has been to you. You may write to us. Email address is marriage encounter, that is MARRIAGEENCOUNTER @slcadventist.org. That is marriage encounter @slcadventist.org. That's all the time we have for today. So until next week, same time, may God's richest blessings be yours.